has always been about.
It's also why your league has always been a huge embarrassing failure. It's also why your league has always been rejected by most.
A genuinely interesting answer. But the answer comes tangled up with a second, more contentious question. How much of that survival is owed to one 23-year-old point guard from Iowa?
You know what's going on with AT? It's absolutely unacceptable. There's been so much more toxicity, racism, homophobia. It is absolutely unacceptable. Most of this coming from the online community. Most of this, you know, in my heart of hearts, I believe.
And what happens to the business model if she gets hurt again? Part 1, 3 decades in the red. The WNBA launched in 1997 as a wholly owned subsidiary of the NBA, a structural choice that shaped everything about how the league has been perceived and financed ever since. Because the NBA created and funded it,
that this is people who are using our league, using our players to further divisive agendas. And if you are one of these people that are online doing this, do not call yourself a WNBA fan. Our league is about inclusiveness. Our league is about competition. Our league is about elevating women, elevating marginalized communities, including and being inclusive of.
Rather than a business, something the NBA subsidized as part of its broader mission rather than something expected to turn a profit. That framing wasn't unfair speculation. League and team executives have said publicly at various points over the years that
That was Indiana Clark's head coach Stephanie White discussing the brutal, vicious attack on Caitlin Clark by Al Thomas. Now, as you just saw, instead of Steph White coming to the defense of her only star player, hell, the
WNBA salary cap and max contracts have historically been a small fraction of what NBA players earn, and it became common, even expected, for WNBA players to play overseas in the off-season, in leagues in Russia, Turkey, China, and elsewhere, because the money was better there than what their U.S. teams could pay them.
Uncle Casey, that's not true. What about Angel Reese? What about Paige Buckner? The WNBA is no longer reliant on Caitlin Clark. This league is filled with huge stars.
2026 season, a dramatic jump from the previous deal, which was valued closer to $60 million a year. Franchise valuations have also moved. Expansion fees for new teams have climbed into the hundreds of millions of dollars, a figure that would have been unthinkable.
Or maybe it was Wednesday. Make-believe basketball was one of the questions on Jeopardy. Now, this was not Celebrity Jeopardy, where a trio of dorks combined their collective brain cell to figure out the identity of one of the Kardashians. This was real Jeopardy.
Plus franchises. Team-by-team profitability isn't fully public, and league officials have been careful in public statements to describe the business as still building towards sustainable profitability rather than having arrived there. What has changed is the trajectory.
A picture of Paige Beckers, who the media claims is one of the faces of the WNBA. The same Paige Beckers who can't fill a 7,000-seat pavilion with tickets selling for less than 10 Ethiopian breadcrumbs. They show a picture of Paige Beckers without her partner Elmer Fudd, which might be why the contestants on Jeopardy had such a hard time figuring out who in the hell she was.
To settle with data alone, because so many things changed at once. Caitlin Clark entered the league in 2024 as the most hyped rookie in WNBA history, coming off a record-breaking, television-drawing college career at Iowa. Her debut season correlated with immediate, dramatic increases in several.
Star had an intense spring in 2025, being picked first in the WNBA draft. Rahul.
Who is Caitlin Clark?
No. Scott or Sarah?
In cities the Fever visited, arenas that otherwise sold a fraction of their capacity for other visiting teams sold out or came close when Indiana came to town. Merchandise sales tied to Clark specifically were reported by the league and by retailers as record-setting for a rookie. ESPN and other broad
People on Jeopardy have no idea who in the hell Paige Beckers is. Outside of Caitlin Clark, they can't name another player in the WNBA dump. Which is why I'm struggling to understand why her own head coach refuses to come to her defense. Instead of defending the Great White Hope, Steph White is delivering a passionate sermon on mythical racism and homophobia. She is demonizing the Caitlin Clark fan base, or as Steph White called them, WNBA fans.
By the Clark Angel Reese storyline in the 2023 title game and Clark's record-setting scoring run in 2024 drew the sport unprecedented college-level attention that lifted the profile of an entire draft class, not just Clark. Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, Camila Cardoso, and others entered the league in the same rookie class and carried real following.
Essentially complaining about Al Thomas and other unknowns in the WNBA dealing with criticism on social media, or as Angel Reese would call it, dealing with those haters.
Up historic individual seasons and has her own substantial, if different, fan base and sponsorship portfolio, including a signature Nike shoe line. Attendance and ratings for the league overall, not just Fever games, rose in 2024 and 2025.
Second, to think of some logical reasons as to why unknown WNBA players would be hated by America. Let's think of some logical reasons as to why the WNBA has a 30-year history of huge embarrassing failure.
Growing league. When Clark missed extended stretches of the 2024 and 2025 seasons with injuries, national television ratings for Fever games without her available reportedly dropped noticeably compared to Fever games she played in, even against.
The NBA is a communist league. For the better part of 3 decades, this toxic turd failed to generate a single peso in profit. They were and still are heavily subsidized by the NBA. If you include the money from their television deal, the NBA is donating hundreds of millions of dollars every year to the WNBA.
Suggest an asymmetry in mainstream name recognition, even while acknowledging that recognition surveys are a blunt and somewhat unreliable measure of a league's actual depth or business health. The honest, unresolved version of this argument, then, looks something like this. The WNBA's business metrics.
The vast majority of players in this league can't draw flies to a fresh turd. They are financially worthless. The WNBA has always prided itself in being an activist league. They focus on activism over basketball. If you don't believe me, watch 5 minutes of a pretend basketball game. Won't take you very long to figure out that most of the players aren't practicing in their free time. They are far too busy flying rainbow flags at the Gay Pride Parade. The rampant entitlement, the constant lecturing of the fan base. Some players in the WNBA, they seem to have a severe dislike of America and the product on the court. It is the equivalent of a flaming ass.
The question hanging over the WNBA wasn't whether it would grow, it was whether it would survive. That question has, for the first time in the league's history, a genuinely interesting answer. But the answer comes tangled up with a second, more contentious question. How much of that survival is owed to one 23-year-old point guard from Iowa, and what happens to the business model if she gets hurt again? Part 1, 3 decades in the red. The WNBA launched in 1997 as a wholly owned subsidiary of the NBA, a structural choice that shaped everything about how the league has been perceived and financed ever since. Because the NBA created and funded it, the WNBA never had to sink or swim on its own in its early years the way an independent startup league would have. That was, in one sense, a gift. It meant the league didn't fold the way its rival, the American Basketball League, did in 1998 after 2 seasons. But it also meant the WNBA spent decades being talked about
has a shitload of problems that she could be focusing on. And what is she focused on instead? She's focused on mythical racism, and she's pretending that people are afraid of Ray Gay. Like I said, this has always been one of the main problems in the WNBA. There is no accountability. This league always blames everyone else for their problems, which is why the product on the court never
was an open secret for years. Salaries reflected this. The WNBA salary cap and max contracts have historically been a small fraction of what NBA players earn, and it became common, even expected, for WNBA players.
Last time you heard anyone in the mainstream talking about pretend basketball? I'm not talking about my colleagues here on YouTube. I know a lot of creators watch every game with the Indiana Clarks. I know they live stream during the pretend basketball game. They break down plays. They explain what happens when Caitlin Clark makes a beautiful pass only for one of her unknown teammates to miss the layup or fumble the miniature ball into the empty chairs in the front row.
Sports landscape tells the real story.
Have also moved. Expansion fees for new teams have climbed into the hundreds of millions of dollars, a figure that would have been unthinkable for the league a decade ago. Golden State's 2025 expansion fee and the fees reported for the Toronto and Portland.
They're living their money. But as you guys know, Uncle KC refuses to waste his valuable time watching this toxic turd. Clearly, I am not alone. How often do you see pretend basketball as the topic of conversation in the mainstream media? First Take, other shows on ESPN or FS1. How often do you hear Colin Cowherd talking about the on-court product in the WNBA?
Ratings, merchandise sales, and ticket demand all posted historic numbers in 2024 and 2025, giving the league leverage in the new media deal and giving owners and prospective owners a reason to pay expansion fees.
Only makes headlines for what happens off the court. They only make headlines when something controversial happens with Caitlin Clark. And look, that's okay. In the business of television, you do whatever it takes to generate interest to your product. In the short term, it can be a great strategy. Problem is, it's not sustainable long term. And one of the reasons it's not sustainable is because most of the controversy that's generating interest involves Caitlin Clark being physically assaulted, and her body seems to be breaking down.
Prior year's numbers for the same matchups. Road attendance spiked in cities the Fever visited. Arenas that otherwise sold a fraction of their capacity for other visiting teams sold out or came close when Indiana came to town. Merchandise sales.
With a former doctor who used to work with the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this is not some doofus WNBA doctor who is healing work injuries in pretend basketball or the WWE. This doctor was working with real basketball players. Basically, he warned the WNBA that Caitlin Clark is taking too much physical contact. Between Al Thomas punching her throat, getting poked in the eye, the constant hits to the face, jealous, aggressive players putting their foot in her landing space when Caitlin Clark is attempting a three-point shot. According to Fox News, there have been 13 instances of controversial contact with Caitlin Clark since her rookie year.
Continued putting up historic individual seasons and has her own substantial, if different, fan base and sponsorship portfolio, including a signature Nike shoe line. Attendance and ratings for the league overall, not just Fever games, rose in 2024 and 2025, suggesting at least some of the surge reflects broader interest in the sport rather than a single-player phenomenon. At the same time, several data points do support the argument that Clark's individual pull is unusually large relative to her peers, even within a genuinely growing league. When Clark missed
is in the midst of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Ironically enough, I was given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity 5 years ago. June of 2021, I could feel my channel gaining traction, momentum. Problem was, I was wasting 45, 50 hours a week at a job that I hated. You guys know the story by now. I quit my job, took advantage of my opportunity. But in the last 5 years, I have done everything in my power to protect this channel. I'm sure you've noticed I have never posted shorts on this channel. You want to know why? Because most people who watch shorts, they don't watch long-form content. The audiences are different. And to me, it's just not worth the risk of me tanking my channel with subscribers who don't want to watch my long-form videos, which is why I put shorts on TikTok or Facebook, and soon I'll be starting a third YouTube channel specific.
Every successful media brand understands that you must ruthlessly protect the specific mechanism that drives your growth. When platforms dilute their core content or fail to shield their primary asset from structural damage, they completely destroy their long-term momentum.
Struggling to understand why the WNBA doesn't have the same mindset, the same mentality. You've got one star. You have one valuable player. The WNBA can claim all they want. AJ Wilson is the most valuable player. They can give her the award. They can promote her as the face of the league, but no one else believes it. You could poll people at the Wilson family reunion, and they wouldn't believe that Asia Wilson is the face of the league. For 3 years, the WNBA has allowed jealous players to unleash their rage towards Caitlin Clark. And for the most part, Kat Engelbert hasn't done a damn thing
that dwarf anything from the league's first 25 years. Part 2, how much of this is one player? The second question is where the real argument lives, and it's a genuinely difficult one to settle with data alone, because so many things changed at once. Caitlin Clark entered the league in 2024 as the most hyped rookie in WNBA history, coming off a record-breaking, television-drawing college career at Iowa. Her debut season correlated with immediate, dramatic increases in several measurable categories. National television audiences for Indiana Fever games, both home and away, jumped substantially over the expansion franchises joining in 2026, reportedly landed well north of $200 million each. None of this means the league is now definitively profitable across all 13-plus franchises. Team-by-team profitability isn't fully public, and league officials have been careful in public statements to describe the business as still building towards sustainable profitability rather than having arrived there. What has changed is the trajectory and the confidence behind it. National television ratings.
Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video.